Hi, this is Sally Wood, and I have these two very interesting chairs. And I'm really not sure with the fabric that's going on how I'm going to put it back together, as in whether I'm going to be able to put these decorative tacks on. This is another chair that's got sewn parts to it on the front and back, so components have to be in line, otherwise it's going to look a little bit funky. So let's get on with it.
Now there really isn't anywhere for me to follow for the pattern, because the pattern that's going on is actually quite wild. I'm going to put a pin here which corresponds with the piping here. I'm going to put another one here where the piping is, another one where that piping is, one down the back. The fabric I'm putting on has stripes going up and down, and it's going to be quite stressful for me. Tailor's chalk would be a really good idea, but I just couldn't find mine. I haven't used it in a very long time. Having marked all these around, I can now remove the seat cushion, and now I can see where those marks are. Those are going to be really important when I come to decide where the pattern's going, because this is sewn together. I have to make sure at least these ones are in line as we go round. To undo all of the legs. Like all other upholstery projects, you have to undo the bottom cloth, which I'm going to keep. This one's unusual. It actually has a zip that goes down the centre, and no, it's not for contraband. I'm sure this is where they put the legs for each chair, and then you've got a chair and all four legs together. Once you've eased the staples up, pull them out with a pair of pliers. I'm going to leave these in situ. This is so that when the leg goes on, it goes on straight. This is going to be awkward because I can't see where all the staples are. They're finished off in black, so they're not as obvious as they sometimes are. Just work all the way around. I have to take this band off. I always try to take the tacks off as straight as possible, although this one's got a curve. They sometimes come in useful later for projects. Sometimes people want them put back on. This is when I find out how the chair was actually put together. Now that I've got a few of these out, I can see this has been sewn on as one piece. That puts a different spin on how I'm going to put it together. I could either do it the same way or differently. I'll have to work that out. It really depends for me on how the fabric looks. I'll just undo these because this will pull down and into place a bit tighter when I've done it. Before I release this side and this side, I've pinned them back into place, and I've got my bubble here. On either side I have my pins to mark it. Line the top up with that pin and the top up with that pin, and I'm going to mark that side and that side. So when I take that out, these pin marks need to come here and here for me to get everything in place. As this is a sewn-in cover, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the pin mark here is on both sides of that seam. Put this pin facing the other way so I don't hurt myself. So it's one on either side of this seam, like that. And then I'll do the same on this seam here. I'm just going to cut these seams apart. They've put a shaped skirt on it. Makes life a lot easier. Get that started and snip. This is because it goes around a shaped base. Let's see how they did it. Taking other people's work apart is a really good way of learning how to put your stuff together. Where those pins are, I'm going to mark like that in, and then carry on up and take it apart. And then I'll do the same on the other side. I'm also, while I'm at it, I'm going to take these off. Just pin that to the base so I know where it comes from. And then I'll do the same on the sides, just so everything is kept together. And I've got to cut two of everything out because I've got two chairs. I want them to all look as identical as I can. Now this is the fantastic fabric that is going on. It's like a cut velvet, but it's really quite interesting. I've chosen this double one because if I line this up, although it's split here, for the most part it's a double band across, then that will stop me having to worry about this being on the base here. If it comes over slightly all the way around, if it mismatches anywhere, it's not so noticeable. The next part of the pattern match is to decide decide where I want the center of the pattern to be, because I don't want it to have a line exactly up. So I think what I'm going to do, having looked at all of this has lines going up quite regularly. This certainly does. Now this does, but it's very far apart. So this is going to be the center of the front border and of the back of the chair. I've got the center marked here, which I'm going to pull over, and I also have a mark here for the center. I'm going to pull that over and I will just pop that in here. Pull that to the side and out, and that should line up more or less with my mark there. Not down, just out. I think that looks about even. And I'm going to do the same on this side, just out. I can pull this up and over. This line here is slightly over the edge up here too, which I'm pleased about. Might have to alter this one, let that come up just a little bit. And now I will work it into place here. As it comes in, there's a piece of wood here. I'm going to cut down at an angle, put a bit of a V in. This should go either side of that piece of wood. Pop that through like that. When I'm happy with it, I'll take this piece out and secure it this side, and the same on that side. But I need to make sure that the center back here goes all the way through to the center back of the chair before I pull the sides in. Here along the side, I'm just going to feed the fabric out like this under the arm towards the back. Here is where it comes onto this side of that. So I'm going to cut across into the back. That should enable me to twist that under and into place. I still need to cut it a little bit further. It sometimes takes a few goes to get it exactly where you want it. Once I've got that into place, I can push the other one out here, but I've got another support to cut round. I don't want to cut it too generously because I've got to pull it into the center of the back, and I'm not sure where the center of the back is. I can ease this to the back and work out where I need to cut for the back support, and I pull it into the center at the back. These might change a little bit, but not too much. I'll get the other side set in before I go further back. I've worked this in, and now that I've put this down, you can see that it lines up here. I think this might be slightly lower, but when I've got everything in, I'll measure up and make sure that it's right. If this is too high, which it might be, it kind of goes up, then I can release these staples and lower it to the point where it needs to be. It's gone in where I want it. What I need to do, this is the side. I'm going to pull that along here like that and just line it up. And when I pull this up here in a line and pull this down, here is my line for the top of the seat. It's about halfway in here. So I am going to pin that here. Now on this piece of fabric is the mark that I need to line up with the sides and the back. I've got the 2 pin marks for where the top of the cushion comes. I'll just see if they're more or less equal that way too. They can alter just a little bit up or down. I've transferred the mark here, which goes along here for the top of the cushion, and I'm going to pop that side so I can see how much space I've got underneath, just for the moment. And I am going to line that up. Actually, that one can go up just slightly. They should be more or less where I want them to be. This is the pattern that I'm using, and it just so happens to have a black mark in the center. So I'm going to pop that there, bring that down slightly so it's in line. Make sure that's still on the black line there, then move that out of the way. Put it on the top and lift, because usually when you've got something on top of something, it adjusts it slightly. Double check everything's where it needs to be there, and then follow the pattern to the top there. That is the piece I'm going to cut out for the back. Now I have looked at the back. This is all rather stretched and out of shape, but this is a loose weave. It moves a little bit more. So I'm going to add a little bit extra to here, come to about here, and then just add about 1/2 inch to the underside here, so I've got more fabric to go in when it's pulled in. If I don't need it, it will just fold under and nobody will know that's what I did. So I'm going to just pin it and then cut it out. I've marked the places where I need to mark up here on either side. I've laid this over the top of the new piece that I need to cut so I can have both the inside backs the same. And now I'm going to just cut up there and round and cut another back for the second chair. This is where this one ends, and I need to get this cut matching. So I am going to fold back this about an inch, which will take it to there, and bring that in here. What happens is when I put the seam in, it should join because it's a 1/2 inch seam, and that's why I take it over an inch. Mark where this ends here so I don't have to worry about it, and then I'll measure back. Here's my mark. The next piece has to go here and be cut out. I'll cut 2 identical ones out to this, and then I'll find the other part for the other side. The pieces that I took off the bottoms of the inside, back and arms, I am going to reapply. That saves me trying to find fabric for the project. I'll just take it over a little ways because I know that it's been ruined. I will add this onto each piece before I sew them together, just like they were originally put on. I'm going to be putting the outside arm in, and it has to follow. And when I say follow, what I mean is this has to line up. This line here is there, then that all comes down to there. It might vary slightly. Pop that round. I've got the right lines here based on what it's following here. Although I want the lines following, it's actually the top I also need to follow too. Here, it's going to be a bit difficult. What I need to do is kind of line these ones up here because I can shift the front slightly. So I'm going to pop that there. That comes along here. Those should all line more or less up here. And I'm going to double check to make sure that these lines are still in line. That's going to be too far over. I'm going to bring it back this way so that that black follows, and see if then I can get it in line. There's a reason for my madness on this one. I'm going to be putting a front border on that will hide this. Double check. That's in line there. That's in line there. That needs to be straighter up and down because it's a straight side. That's one thing that I do need to make sure. Pull that down slightly. The blues all fall on there. Let's redouble check. This is my thing. I need to at least try to make sure these squares follow as well. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. This was the original outside piece for here, and I'm laying that over the top, matching up the parts where it dips down. Then I'm going to pin it on the outside like that so I don't ruin the fabric, so that I can remove it and cut this twice, and then I'll do the same for the other side. Because this is rounded, I'm going to do this side slightly differently. I have to put a piece in here. The way this comes around originally, dissected the back and the side here. I want to dissect it further back so that it looks like this goes all the way around. I have this piece of fabric here, which matches up, and I'm going to pop that there. The top, I'm going to make 4 inches, so that has to come down quite a bit, and I'm going to just put a pin in there for now. This end has to be 3.5 inches. Oh, that was actually spot on. Bring that in a little bit, and then start folding this back a wee tad. Pin that into place as well. Remeasured that to 4 inches, cut the fabric back slightly, and I am just going to fold that over like that. It doesn't have to be a perfect match because it's going in at a slight angle. I'll stick that with a pin for now here. Fold that down. Keep the line as straight as possible. Because it goes in at an angle, it's not going to be a perfect match. So long as all of this kind of goes around more or less evenly, you'll be fine. And while I'm at it, I'm going to cut this back so it doesn't keep falling down. And I'm going to put a couple of staples in just for good measure. And there. And again at the other end. I could have cut it longer, but because of the shaping, I might have got it wrong. Not only that, these would have gone up. It's just my own personal thing. You might want to cut this in one piece and not have this bother. I'm going to start here a little ways back because that would be hidden by the piping that's going here, and then down, there we go, and then across. It's a little ladder stitch. I use this one quite often, and up. Always make sure you're opposite where your thread comes up, and that's all you're going to do all the way down. And because it's velvet, I just kind of fluff it up as I go. If you're going to use a semicircular needle, which I do sometimes, I actually find it easier to have a pair of pliers to help push it through and keep it straight. but basically the same as I'm doing here. I've come all the way down here and I'm just going to finish off same way as I started, just around the edge. A few stitches, make sure you get around the corner. And because it's stapled in, it will be a little bit difficult. I'm just going to go all the way down here. It'll come out eventually. There we go. Just put 3 stitches in, same as you always finish stuff off. And then leave the thread over the side so that it can be hidden underneath the base cloth. And there we are. So now I'm going to put the next piece in exactly the same way. I've cut the piping, the pile goes down. Now cut it on the diagonal and I'll join it all the same. I've had to put this in this way. My piping is here. I've back tacked the front arm on like this. This is on just to give a little bit of plumpness to it so it's not so flat. Because there's stripes going on round, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this side with the stripes on this side. As you can see, there's a red one here, goes here. There's a white one, turns into black. It turns into black here. You've got the chevrons going up and they come into the chevrons here. Always try to match everything you can, especially at the top and middle. I just put pins all the way across and through the piping. It just holds it into place. It doesn't hold it tightly into place, just so that I don't have to keep pulling it as I sew it all the way to the top. If this is too wide, you can always cut that back. Just make sure you've got at least ½ an inch. If it's already pre-pulled in, it makes life a lot easier. At the bottom, I'm just going to work this in. I have taken back the piping that was in here, so just the fabric is over the top there. Put that down like that, and then carry on across here. Just start this off by going this way. That is so that I can hide the tail of my sewing underneath here. You don't want it showing. And then I'm going to come up here, right on the corner of the fold. Like that. Always make sure that you go down exactly opposite your stitch and on up. The easiest way is to use a pair of pliers and then just push it forward and then up. Go into the next part there. Sometimes you might need to use the pliers to go that way too. And then down. The thing you need to remember is the side that you're sewing into the piping. Make sure that you have put plenty of staples along there to hold it in place, because the pressure from this starts lifting the piping from the side and you don't want it to look like the piping is lifting. It's a useful method to know because sometimes you need to sew things in. It's just that this chair ended up needing quite a bit done. Start the back tacking a little ways back from the edge and put it all the way along. This actually didn't have any padding on at all. It had a piece of fabric and decorative tacks either side. I have found this super soft foam, which I'm going to line up with the front of the chair here, and I'm going to staple it on the side where the back tacking is, all the way up. Now that the back tacking and the foam are in place, fold this over, roll it under the foam and pull that into place. Put pins in it to hold it. That saves you having to keep pulling it into place as you're working the fabric. You will have to pull it into place, but it keeps it more stable and even as you work your way up the length that you're sewing. There's a join here, which I'm going to sort out later. I don't do that first. I sew and stabilise the sides in before I do the ends. They'll go in a lot better. Again, just start your sewing off like that. Remove the first pin. Hold it flat. Go in at the side of the fabric. Hold it. Then go into the piping cord. Ease it through. It's quite easy to break your needles when you're using pliers. Just make sure that wherever you come up, you go across so it forms a ladder stitch and move your way along. The gentleman where I worked taught me how to do this because this was the way they used to do it in the old days. Trouble is, it is really quite labour intensive and it gives me another video to post. Keep everything even so the foam doesn't look too lumpy, which is a little bit difficult because of the way the fabric is woven. It's got loose and very firm patches. I am going to cut this back here just a little ways. I'm going to push this up and in like that because you need to have a hem there. Push that up and in like that. It's a little bit fiddly because there's not very much fabric and you don't want to have too much. Cut that off a little bit so there's not so much fabric going into there, and a little bit off there, and pop that in like that. And then bring this down really hard over the top. You can maneuver it once you've started to sew it. Put a pin all the way through to hold it. I'm going to have to work this little corner in first. I'm going to come up from under here, back here, down through the piping like that. Any threads, make sure they're up underneath, and then into the side here. Push that underneath and then take it back into the piping to hold it like that. Now come back, in this case the black fabric, and up and into the piping. This really secures the corners, in through the fabric and out through the front like that, into the fabric that's coming into the corner like that, and just put little stitches all the way across. I usually put 1/4 of an inch stitches or less. Take my pin out, again go up through the top. Try to keep the top fabric as square on as possible because that sometimes wants to come down. In through the bottom like that, and make sure you, if it's velvet, make sure you go through the fabric, not the pile, otherwise it's not going to work. And across, and then when you come to the other side, you kind of work it like you did on this side, so it's nice and secure to the piping. Push the fabric back with your needle if you need to. The fabric's so thick, it's a little bit temperamental. Push that bit down and pull that bit over, and it should, with a bit of luck, as I ease that, give a squarer look to the top here. In and across, down into the piping, just a little way, pull that down hard and then push that back up. I'm going to do that a couple of times. It won't ever show from the front, but if you do that, probably you're going to be able to cast off without worrying too much. So that's probably the worst of it caught in, should not be coming undone. Then all I'm going to do is come across the front here like that, put a real small stitch in and across like that, and another small stitch, tiny and across like that, and then you've got a really long thread that's not going anywhere, and cut. There, hidden. I have to put this piece of fabric on here which I've started, and I'm back tacking it. I found the piece that I wanted and I've initially put this in. I'm going to finish stapling here. That's been pushed harder up against the piping, so there's no gaps. Open that out so it's flat. It needs to be as even as possible. Let's pull that out like this. And to start off with, there isn't that much shaping to worry about, so I'm going to put my hands under here and push the fabric into that corner. Move all the other fabric back and staple into place. Then with the back tacking, push that hard against the piping and secure. Trim back the fabric to the back tacking. Pull the fabric forward again and work out where the next piece is going to, which is right here. You can see it's just slightly pulling out here. I'm going to put my finger underneath on the corner, pull the fabric back this way and secure. Again with the back tacking, push it against the piping cord so it's starting to twist like that and secure in place. Cut the fabric back. This gives the fabric the ability to twist. Pull the fabric forward, make sure it's in line again. This time I'm going to twist the fabric around the corner like that. I'm going to put my fingers underneath and hold it in place on that corner and secure it. Before I go any further, just cut this little bit back a little bit more because it's not really twisting like I want it to. Cut it out actually. Pull it forward just to make sure everything is where it needs to be. So my line goes here and that goes round. It's where I want it. Pull that back like that. Push it hard up against the piping yet again and secure. I'm just going to cut straight to that, and I'm going to cut it in front of there like that, over the edge by at least an inch and across. Then I'm going to repeat on this side, so hold that flat, pull that in slightly, hold that into the corner and open and secure it against the piping as hard as you can. Pull it forward, twist this part into place as well, up to the corner and pinch it into place here. Fold the fabric forward, secure it. Make sure all of this is flat and in place. Pull this around against the curve. Put your finger underneath, flip the fabric over like that and secure. I've just cut that back slightly. I am placing this piece over the top because it's a bit shy. Again, finishing about 1/2 inch in from the end, and I'm going to staple this into position. I think that'll be fine. And then cut back about 1 inch from the outside edge here. And again, a nice little distance out from the piping underneath. I'm going to staple these along here just to fill in the gap. I don't want it to be hollow. If I put that in the center like this, the fabric will roll around it up to the top end here. Start in the center here, pull this over like that, tuck it under and pin it into place. I'm going to cut this back just a little bit more and then roll that under there too as I work my way up here, and then I'll work my way back down the other way. On here I had to hand sew this piping against the fabric because I couldn't keep any of the staples in, they just kept popping out. I think it's cardboard that was under there. So if you have to do this, put your curve in, or a straight line, or whatever it is you have to do, and back stitch, and make sure that the stitch that goes through comes immediately behind the piping sew line, and then back through, back stitch all the way down. When you put this border on, then just pin it both ways and then ease the fabric round. When you sew this on, all you have to do is a normal running stitch on this side and the same on this side. So hopefully, if you come to something this awkward, you'll know how to do it. Thank you for joining me on this project. It was a brain teaser. I'm going to be very polite. I struggled with this mainly because the fabric was a very firm fabric compared to what came off. Lining up the stripes this way and up and down as well was frustrating, and then the fact that when I was putting in the sides the staples kept popping out. I hope that I imparted some useful information and tips to you. I really hope that this lady likes her chairs. They're wild. I like the fabric, I think. I've got used to it. I hope she's going to enjoy them. I really hope she's going to enjoy them. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be absolutely excellent. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.